The staircase in the library. On June 20th, 2018, 19-year-old college student Juliana Park was reported missing by her mother Lucy. The following correspondence was pulled from Juliana's personal email account by an unknown hacker who sent me this series of emails via private message. The addresses of all parties involved have been redacted to maintain their privacy. From J. Park to Tattoo Mom 57. Subject: Hi, from Julie. Hey Mom, how's it going? I realize it's been a while since I've checked in, so this is me checking in. Hope you and Skip are doing okay in that new apartment. Is the landlord giving you grief again? I'm not sure how anyone could be mad at that dog. He's like the embodiment of cuteness bundled up in one adorable puppy package. Some people are just heartless, I guess. I know you were worried about me finding a summer job out here. Well, worry no more. I did some reaching out and managed to nab an assistant position at the Theodore Holbrook Memorial Library here in town. You really wouldn't expect to find a place like this in suburban Idaho. It's a beautiful building, with these frosted glass windows and gray bricks and sturdy towers that face the 4 points of the compass. The library opens early so you can sit in the eastern tower with a cozy book and let the rising light sweep over you, all orange and bright. It's pretty awesome. And the western tower is just as beautiful at closing time. The head librarian is this bookish guy, John Peregrine. He's pretty nice, has the thickest glasses I've ever seen, and looks vaguely middle-aged. But he's got this amazing swish of black hair that I'm honestly kind of jealous of. He wears these stuffy sweaters all the time, but when he rolls up his sleeves, you can see these tattoos going up and down his arms. So clearly, he's not your typical nerd. In case you haven't picked up on the subtext yet, he's totally your type. There aren't too many other employees here, so John has me covering a lot of bases. A lot of it is reshelving the books that visitors leave lying around, and there's some organization stuff too, like typing up cards for the catalog. My favorite part is working with the old books, though. Holbrook donated a huge collection of rare books to the library before he died, and there's some seriously cool stuff here. Just the other day, I had to dust what looked like an original copy of Einstein's theory of relativity. Can you imagine how Dad would have geeked out if he had seen something like that? It can be creepy sometimes, though. This is a really old building, and I'm pretty sure it's haunted, or it has a reputation of being haunted at least. The shelves are really tall, and when it's dark, it kind of looks like they're warping over you, like they've forgotten how to stand up straight. And there have been times when I'm cleaning up after hours that I feel like I'm not alone in this place. Sometimes when I'm closing, I think I hear a fluttering sound coming from deep in the stacks, like someone turning the pages of an old book, or maybe the sound of bat wings. It pays well enough, though, and a little bit of creepiness isn't going to scare me away from the nicest summer job I've ever had. I'll try to keep in touch when I can, and I'll let you know how it goes. Give Skip the biggest hug from me. Love, Juliana. From J. Park to Tattoo Mom 57. Subject: I found something weird. Hey Mom, glad to hear everything's going fine back home. I do miss you guys. Like, a lot. I promise that I'll book a flight back as soon as I know when my next vacation days are. You don't have to worry about me being a stranger. The library job is still working out pretty well, but I found something weird the other day, and I haven't really been able to talk to anybody about it. John had assigned me to clean the Eastern Tower reading room before visitors arrived, sweeping and dusting and straightening the books and stuff. The morning sunlight was streaming in, and everything was lit up orange. I had my headphones in and was enjoying how mindless the whole task was, when I noticed that one of the bookcases was pulled forward a little, leaving a tiny space between it and the wall. Now, this was weird because all the shelves in the buildings are either freestanding or bolted to the walls. This one was neither. I yanked on it a little and it swung outward an inch or two, like the whole thing was on a hinge. I know, I should have just pushed it back in and kept sweeping, but I could feel this curiosity bubbling inside of me and I needed to get a closer look. I'd always wanted to discover a secret passageway. Guess it's one of those childhood dreams I never quite left behind. The shelf slid open about 2 feet or so before it got caught on the carpet. I was able to squeeze through though, and as soon as I did, I found myself tucked into a dark crawl space. I expected it to be dusty as hell back there, but the walls felt totally smooth under my fingers. A little bit of the sunlight got in there so I could sort of see my way forward, but just barely. I followed the crawl space until it opened up into a wide, dim chamber. There was a marble staircase in the center of the room, spiraling down so far that I couldn't see where it ended. I must have been in the jutting part of the eastern tower. From outside you can see it sticking out, but I'd always assumed it was just part of the architecture, an unused space. The rest of the room was empty and covered with dust, so I decided to head down the stairs and see where they led. It probably wasn't the smartest move, since clearly this place was hidden and no one knew where I was, but that curiosity was driving me so strongly I don't think I could have ignored it if I'd tried. My footsteps were strangely quiet on the steps, even though I was wearing heavy boots that day. There was no light source on the walls, but somehow I was able to see clearly enough as I worked my way down. I had gone maybe 2 stories when I started noticing something weird. The walls, which had been clear gray stone up to this point, were now covered with what looked like black vines. They twisted up and down the stone in increasingly strange patterns. The vines had a sharp, spiny look to them, and I realized they were covered with tons of little dark thorns. A few times I saw a small flower blooming from the tangle, but the petals were just as black as the vines themselves. I started noticing a sound, too, like a hushed voice muttering something under its breath. I couldn't make out a word of it. That should have been the moment when I turned around and booked it back upstairs, but I just gripped my broom and kept moving down, going deeper than I rightfully should have been able to go. The vines continued to thicken on either side of me. Then, the stairs finally leveled out and I found myself on the bottom landing. The first thing I noticed were the statues. There were 2 of them, looming over me like giant swooping bats, although the only real resemblance they had were their enormous folded wings. Each had 2 distorted heads, sort of humanoid, but with pointed ears and horns that curled around their foreheads in a tight spiral. One head was smiling broadly, the other was twisted into an expression of pure agony. They clutched at their wings with 6 clawed hands. The feet that perched on each pedestal were enormous and hairy, like bear's paws. After my initial shock from the statues died down, I saw that they were arching above a simple wooden door, its surface lit up by 2 fluorescent lights in the ceiling. There was a massive iron bolt stretched across it. The vines seemed to be bursting from gaps in the door frame, spilling outwards in their tangled patterns. The muttering I had heard before, louder this time, was coming from behind the door. I stood there for a minute or so, not sure what I should do. The bolt across the door made it clear that this was as far as I was meant to go. Then, the muttering stopped suddenly. The landing went totally silent. I was too afraid to move, too afraid to make a sound with my retreating footsteps. Then, the voice behind the door spoke up again, louder this time. "Hello?" it said. It sounded like a man, hoarse and raspy, like he hadn't had a drink of water in ages. "Is somebody there? Please, if you're there, let me out, please. I've been reading for so long. I can't do this anymore. Please, please, just get me out of here." I finally did the smart thing and booked it the hell out of there. I ran up the entire flight of stairs, squeezed out from behind the bookshelf, and slid the whole thing back to where it was supposed to be. My hands were shaking. Sweeping was the last thing on my mind, but I forced myself to get back to work, just in case John happened to wander by and see how I was doing. I couldn't get that hoarse, pleading voice out of my head. I don't know who or what is behind that door. I don't know what is up with those vines or the creepy statues standing guard. All I know is I can't tell John or any of the other workers what I have found, because clearly it was meant to stay hidden. But I had to tell someone. The secret would burst out of me otherwise. That's why I'm telling you. That bolt was locked from the outside. That means whoever was calling out to me from behind the door Someone was trying to keep him in there. I don't think I can afford to leave this job, not with the current state of my bank account, but I'll try to stay far away from the Eastern Tower if I can avoid it, and I'll keep in touch with you every day just to let you know I'm safe. Love you, Mom. Hugs and kisses. Juliana. From J. Park to Tattoo Mom 57. Subject: I'm not crazy. First of all, thanks for assuming I'm off my meds instead of, actually believing me for once. I've told you 100 times that I'm taking them every night like I'm supposed to. I even stay sober when all my friends are drinking their brains out because I know alcohol can fuck with my brain chemistry. I'm being smart about this. Please don't treat me like a child. Second, I've been having nightmares ever since I found that staircase in the library. Every night I find myself walking down those steps, going deeper and deeper into that blanket of vines until I reach the door at the bottom. It's always open, and when I go inside, I see a man sitting in a little circle of light, his body wrapped in vines, his hands turning the pages of a leather-bound book. He's reading it out loud, muttering the words under his breath, but he stops when he notices me standing there. He stares up at me, and he looks so hollow and broken, and he says, "Please," just like I heard when I was actually there, just that one word over and over again. Please, 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 please. And every time I try to reach for him, and every time that's the moment when I wake up. This isn't some delusion thing. My brain's working fine, which means that something very wrong is happening in this library. And I need to find out what. I'm not going to get a peaceful night's sleep until I figure out who's behind that door and whether they need saving or not. I know you'll tell me to go to the police, but what would I even say to them? Someone's being held prisoner in a secret passageway in the library? I'll get laughed off the phone. No, I'm on my own here. But that doesn't mean I have to go unprepared. I still carry that mace like you told me to, and I've got Dad's old pocket knife in case things get rough. I'm hoping they won't, but you can never be too careful. I'll email you the second I get back. If you don't hear from me within 24 hours, well, maybe that would be a good time to call the police. I have a feeling missing people take precedence over secret passages. With any luck, though, you'll hear from me in no time. I do love you, Mom, even if you don't always trust me. Wish me luck, Juliana. From J. Park to Tattoo Mom 57. Subject: I'm okay. I just got back from the library, and I'm totally fine, Mom. More than a little freaked out, but I'm okay. I'm writing this from my dorm room. The guy from behind the door is here too, but don't worry, he's a friend. I think he's about my age. He says his name is Dylan McAllister, and he used to work in the library before he was taken prisoner down there. I'm getting way ahead of myself, though. Let me start over. I went straight to the hidden staircase once I started my shift, saying I was going to clean the Eastern Tower again. On my way, I grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall. I had my mace and pocket knife like I told you, but it felt good to have something big and heavy in my hands, just in case. I pulled back the bookcase and headed straight down the stairs, moving as quickly as I could. I had no idea what John would do if he caught me sneaking around down here. The vines and the bat-winged statues greeted me before long, and I made a beeline for the door, dropping the extinguisher so I could yank back the iron bolt. It was stuck pretty tight, and it made a loud scraping sound as I pulled, which drowned out the muttering from inside. When I finally managed to pull it back, the muttering had stopped entirely. It was like the person inside was listening, cautious, waiting to see who was about to enter his chamber. I felt my skin prickle under the heavy silence. Clutching the fire extinguisher, I pushed open the door. I half expected to see the scene from my nightmares, but instead, I was caught off guard by an assortment of cushy armchairs and elegant reading lamps. There was a guy sitting in a plush purple seat, a hardcover book in his lap, his eyes wide and fixed right on me. He didn't look like the man in my dream, but he was alarmingly thin and had kind of a fearful, hungry look in his eyes, like a junkie. He rose from the chair cautiously, setting aside the book with trembling hands. "You're not him," he said in the same hoarse voice I had heard before. "No, I'm not," I said. "Who locked you in here?" He didn't answer me. Instead, he stumbled across the room and put his hands on my shoulders. They were clammy and shaking, and my first impulse was to tear myself away, but it became obvious that he wasn't trying to attack me. He was just trying to find somebody to support him. "He made me read for him," the guy said. "Every day. Whenever I wasn't eating or pissing or shitting, he just kept me in here and gave me that book. And I have to read it cover to cover, and when I was done, I had to start over and do the whole thing again, and again, and again." He started to sob. "Please, please, God, don't make me read it again." I glanced over at the book he had placed down. I'd never heard of it. It was called On the Realms of Horror and the Paths Between by someone named Dane Constantine. The cover was threadbare and depicted an illustration of something green and slimy crawling out of a rift in the sky. "Why would he make you read that?" I asked. "What's the point?" He pointed a trembling finger at the wall behind me. "That's why." For the first time, I realized that the muttering had picked up again, even though the guy himself wasn't making a sound. I turned around and saw... God, it's hard to describe. There was a hole in the wall beside the door, but instead of looking out into another room, it was open onto a pure white space that made my brain erupt in a splitting headache. The muttering was coming from inside, along with the sea of black vines I had seen in the stairwell. They spilled over the edges of the hole and slithered out the now open doorway. "What the hell is that place?" I asked. As if answering my question, something stirred inside the whiteness, like a person brushing aside a veil, shapeless and colorless. My headache got even worse. The guy who'd been reading the book grabbed my arm as the muttering grew louder, reaching a pitch that seemed high enough to shatter glass. "They know I've stopped reading," he shouted. "We have to go!" I looked away from the void, snapping back to reality, and followed him out into the hallway. But as we hurried towards the staircase, our way forward was suddenly blocked by a wall of stony wings. The statues had moved from their pedestals and swooped down to trap us. Their bodies were a weird mix of flesh and stone, and their mouths were open in shark-like grimaces as they loomed over us. The same high-pitched muttering issued from their throats. I didn't even think. Swinging the fire extinguisher up, I released a blast of foam into their faces, causing them to rear back in surprise. The two of us took advantage of the moment to slip beneath the gaps in their wings and hurry up the flight of stairs. My heart was pounding a mile a minute, and my instincts had given way to full-blown panic. The vines were growing around us, some trying to stab us with their thorny flowers, but I bashed them away with the empty canister and kept running. I couldn't believe how far up these stairs went. It felt like we'd been running for hours. When we finally reached the landing at the top, I think I actually started to cry. Together we burst into the eastern tower and immediately began pushing the bookshelf back into place. I wasn't sure how effective it would be against those fucking statue monstrosities, but the vines didn't seem to have reached this high. And we didn't plan on sticking around anyway. The two of us managed to sneak outside without being spotted by the library staff and booked it to my dorm room as fast as we could. Dylan's pretty shaken up. We both are, but neither of us are hurt, and I think we'll be okay. One thing's for sure, I'm staying far away from that library. I should probably get as far away from Idaho as I can, too. The semester's over, and I can justify taking a plane back home. As soon as we get Dylan somewhere safe, I'll book a flight to come see you guys. That's what you've wanted anyway, right? So get my room all ready, because I'll be seeing you soon. Give Skip a hug for me. I'll let you know when I've got my flight locked in. Love as always, Juliana. The following email was sent on June 13th from Lucy Park to John Peregrine, head librarian of the Theodore Holbrook Memorial Library. From Tattoo Mom 57 to Peregrine. Subject: regarding Juliana. Hi, Mr. Peregrine. I hope you're doing well. You don't know me, but I'm writing to you because my daughter Juliana hasn't been in touch for over a week, and I understand she's working for you this summer. I was hoping you could let me know whether Julie has been into work at all this past week, and if so, whether you've noticed anything unusual about her behavior. Lately, she's been messaging me about strange staircases and secret rooms that she claims to have discovered in your library. The last email she sent me was filled with some alarming imagery and claimed that a young man was being held prisoner below the building. It honestly read like a piece of creative writing, and it made me concerned about her mental state. I'm worried that she may not be well. Julie has had large-scale delusions in the past. When she was 16, she believed that her father, who died in a car accident several years ago, was speaking to her through radios and TV sets. I won't go into specifics to protect Julie's privacy, but after one particular incident, she was put on medication to curb the worst of these delusions. She's been healthy and functional for years now, but given these messages, I'm afraid that her symptoms have started to reemerge. If you could just let me know how Julie's doing these days, it'd put me very much at ease. She was planning to come visit soon, but I haven't heard any details from her about her flight. I think coming home would be the best thing for her right now. The next time you see her, could you just remind her to give her mother a call? Thanks for your time, and very best. Lucy Park. If John Peregrine ever responded to Lucy Park, the anonymous hacker didn't bother to share that correspondence with me. Peregrine himself left his job at Theodore Holbrook Memorial Library just days after the email was sent. I spoke to several of his former co-workers at the library, but no one was able to tell me where Peregrine had went, or why he had resigned so suddenly. As for Dylan McAllister, he appears to be a drug addict and mental patient formerly housed by the Mount Palmer Institute in Minnesota, before he went missing 3 months ago. Dylan's supposed reappearance was not reported by any major papers that I could find. Trying to locate Lucy Park met with similar results. I sent her a message inquiring about Juliana, but the email was immediately rejected, as the recipient has either deleted their account or does not exist. The hidden staircase, too, failed to turn up after a thorough investigation of the library's eastern tower. With no witnesses to verify Juliana's account, and no physical evidence to back up her claims, I might have thought her emails were indeed the product of a damaged mind, were it not, however, for a final email forwarded to me by my correspondent. From Peregrine to Arcor. Subject: redacted. After a containment breach on June 6, 2018, Tulpa candidate DM73 was returned to the safe house for the memory erasure and reinitiation. Potential candidate JP54, who was being observed due to her prior history of mental illness, has regrettably been terminated. All electronic communication regarding DM73 or related candidates from the Tulpa project have been expunged as per project protocol. DM73's reading room has been compromised, and he will be moved to a new location following his reinitiation. The anomalies created by DM73's sessions have been put under quarantine, and we will send Ingram tomorrow to restore dimensional stability. The Tulpa project, in accordance with the Rift Studies Division of Rosencorp, will continue to move forward as planned. Peregrine.